In the last video, I covered the installation, but we had a lot of plugin parameters, which I didn't go over. And in this video, I'm going to go over those plugin parameters. The first plugin we had, which had plugin parameters, was the Rose Engine Core. And here we have quite a few parameters. Let's start off with renderer precision. And renderer precision, this determines the accuracy that the renderer will draw with. And honestly, I recommend leaving it at medium. You can set it to high or set it to low, but I think medium suits most needs, so it shouldn't ever have to be changed, honestly. But the option is there. Next, we have our camera settings and our camera type, perspective or orthographic. And there should be some examples on the screen which shows the difference between an orthographic and a perspective camera. A orthographic camera does not have depth. It looks 2D, even though it is actual 3D still, whereas a perspective camera is the traditional camera used in most 3D games. A good example of an orthographic camera would be Final Fantasy Tactics, the original on the PlayStation. This game was in 3D space, but it uses a orthographic camera. Next, we have field of view. And the larger the field of view, the wider the viewing angle of the camera becomes. I have a couple examples that I'll have on screen, and FOV is only available for a perspective camera. So if you choose an orthographic camera, this setting will not actually affect anything. For our orthographic camera, we have camera size, and I would recommend changing this. 10 is a very large number, and probably too large in fact. I'd say go with something like 4 or 5. Next is near draw distance and far draw distance. Honestly, I'd just recommend leaving these alone. They should be fine as is. Rotation speed affects the speed of rotation from player input. So if the player tries to rotate the camera with mouse or in the future with a gamepad, this determines how fast it will rotate. And same with zoom speed. This only affects zoom based on player's input. So the larger the number, the faster it zooms or rotates. The smaller the number, the slower. Next up, we have light settings. And this is actually going to be removed, so I wouldn't recommend messing with this too much for right now. I plan to add lights into the 3D map editor itself. That way you can visualize all of this stuff in real time. So that's it for our core settings. Next up, we have our map add-on, and this has two parameters: 8 direction movement, which is enabled by default. That gives you 8 directional movement, as well as WASD movement, and that gives you the option to move with WASD instead of using the arrow keys. You can still use the arrow keys, but WASD is an alternative. And I think for a 3D game where you can rotate the camera with the mouse, moving with arrow keys is a little unintuitive, and that's why it's enabled by default. And that's all for the setup of the Rose engine. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.